It's built mostly copy and paste from tutorial 3 part 2, so it should move pretty quickly for you. Here's the patch itself, and we'll take a look at the animation it creates. So when we start up the patch, we see a sky background, 2 blocks, and then our regular 50 red balls that are just copied from a previous tutorial. I can randomize the position and color of the balls and drop them. And the thing to notice here is, although they're randomly scaled and randomly positioned, the ones on the right are larger and redder. The ones on the left are more teal and smaller. And also the ones on the left are bouncier than the ones on the right. They have a higher restitution value. There's a series of 6 cues, and your task is to build the 6 cues and then build these buttons to step us through the cues. So here's Q1 to Q2, which just causes this top block to shrink, dropping half of the balls. Q2 to Q3 rotates the top block and scales both blocks, so the spheres are divided on 2 sides of that wall. Q3 to Q4 rotates the block again. Q4 to Q5 flies the camera to a new position, and Q5 to Q6 just shrinks those blocks so the balls fall down and are stopped by the world box here. And you can jump to the individual cues with these buttons. So here's back to Q1. We can drop the balls again in Q1. There's Q2. There's Q3. Q4. Q5 is the camera move. And Q6. So you can see what I've set up here is restart button, buttons that take me to the individual cues, and then buttons that play back the cues. Q1 to Q2, Q2 to Q3, Q3 to Q4, Q4 to Q5, and Q5 to Q6. So let's take a look at the patch itself. The patch itself uses a lot of send and receives. They're color-coded, so we see when we start the patch, we have a send start, and then everything that's connected with a receive start is going to happen when the patch is turned on. Here we see there's a read sky.jit. That's our sky background color, which is a saved jitter matrix. So if I close this patch, reopen it, and restart the patch, I get the same color palette in the background. So we can see that there's a sky maker patcher here, and it's going to be your job to build that. How is that sky created? And then here we have the whole read mechanism I've given to you. Down here, we have a message you haven't seen before, cull_face1. We're sending this to all the shapes and all the boxes. And that's just a drawing aid. It helps draw the boxes a little bit more nicely. You can just copy that exactly. But also this gives you a hint. Whenever you see a send, you know there's a corresponding receive somewhere. Over here, we have a standard construction of jit.noise through jit.gen into these patchers that change color, position, scale, and restitution. We haven't seen restitution changed in a tutorial, but you should be able to infer how to do that from the tutorial material. And then here's our poly tilde with the 50 spheres in it. So when we send to the noise, it generates the random positions, and then the jit.gen controls the coloration, sizing, and restitution. Then we have controllers for the rotation of each of our big blocks, the scale of our blocks. These are using the multi-sliders straight out of the tutorial, and the position of the blocks so they can be moved around. And we also have a camera position so that we can fly the camera around using a multi-slider. That's fun. And then up here we have the standard construction for a pattern storage that's going to store the cues, and we have buttons to recall the cues. So Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5, Q6. We have buttons to store the cues, and you can see here I've used the $1 just so I don't have to repeat the word store in each message box. So when you're writing a cue, there's Q1 if I wanted to adjust Q1 a little bit, say by rotating this a touch, and then I could store Q1, and now Q1 has that rotation built into it. And then these playback cue buttons, these send messages to the line object, which cycle us through the 6 cues. And of course, these don't need to match exactly, but something along the lines is important. The sky needs to be a fixed background. The initial structure of the spheres needs to be consistent. There need to be 2 blocks that roughly transition through the transformations that are shown here. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6.